In the 1500s, if you were a glassmaker on a tiny island near Venice and you tried to leave, there is a real chance the Venetian government sent someone to kill you. Not for stealing gold, not for treason against the state, for knowing how to make a mirror. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why an empire once guarded a piece of glass like it was a nuclear weapon, why for centuries touching your own reflection could apparently unravel your soul, and why the same object hanging in your bathroom right now is also sitting on top of the most powerful telescope humanity has ever built, floating 1,000,000 miles from Earth. This is the strange, occasionally murderous history of the mirror. We're going to start about 8,000 years ago, and I promise the assassins are coming. But first, we need to talk about volcanoes. Around 6000 BC, in a settlement called Çatalhöyük in what is now Turkey, people were mining a black volcanic glass called obsidian. When obsidian breaks, it fractures into edges sharp enough to use as knives. But if you polish a flat piece of it patiently enough, something else happens. It starts to reflect you back at yourself. And here's the part that should mess with your head a little. Archaeologists don't actually think the very first mirrors were used to check your appearance at all. Many researchers believe they were used for divination. Priests and shamans staring into dark, polished stone, looking for visions, for spirits, for the future. Before a mirror ever showed anyone their own face, it may have been trying to show them the invisible world instead. Now, fast forward a couple thousand years, and civilizations start figuring out that polished metal works even better than stone. The Egyptians were polishing copper into mirrors as early as 4,000 years ago. The wealthy carried small bronze hand mirrors, often with elaborate handles shaped like lotus flowers or goddesses, because in Egyptian belief, the mirror wasn't just a tool, it was tied to Hathor, the goddess of beauty, and to the concept of eternal life itself. The Chinese and the Greeks and the Romans were doing something almost identical, with bronze and later with polished silver. But here's the thing nobody tells you about all of these ancient mirrors. They were terrible. Polished metal tarnishes, it scratches, it reflects a dim, warped, slightly greenish version of your face, and every single one had to be hand-polished constantly just to stay usable. For thousands of years, seeing an accurate reflection of your own face was genuinely a luxury only the richest people on Earth could reliably afford. Which is exactly what happened in Venice, starting in the 1200s, is such a big deal. Glassmakers on the island of Murano, just off Venice, figured out how to back a thin sheet of glass with a reflective layer, first using polished metal, and eventually a genuinely revolutionary technique using tin and liquid mercury. And unlike a bronze disc, glass mirrors were flat, clear, bright, and they actually looked like you. Venice realized almost immediately what they had: a monopoly on the single most desirable luxury object in Europe. So the Venetian government did something extreme. They passed laws forcing Murano's glassmakers to live and work exclusively on that island. They were forbidden by law to leave the Venetian Republic. And according to historical accounts, if a glassmaker tried to defect and sell Venice's mirror-making secrets to a rival country, the Council of Ten, Venice's secret intelligence body, could, and reportedly did, send agents to track them down. Some accounts describe glassmakers who fled abroad dying under suspicious circumstances shortly after. Historians debate how many of these stories are documented fact versus exaggerated legend, but the core truth isn't in dispute. Venice guarded this secret with state-level paranoia for a very simple reason. For nearly 2 centuries, if a king or queen anywhere in Europe wanted a proper mirror, they had to buy it from Venice at an absolutely staggering price. And this is where things go from luxury item to full-blown geopolitical grudge match. In the 1660s, France's finance minister, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, working for King Louis XIV, decided France was done paying Venice's prices. So France did what France apparently does. It bribed the enemy's own experts to defect. Colbert secretly recruited several of Murano's top mirror craftsmen and smuggled them into France, promising them fortunes to build France's own mirror industry from scratch. Venice did not take this well. Several of the defecting glassmakers reportedly died shortly after arriving in France, and many historians believe Venetian agents poisoned them as punishment for treason and as a warning to anyone else who might be tempted. France built its mirror industry anyway, and Louis XIV wanted the entire world to know it. In 1678, construction began on a room at the Palace of Versailles that would become one of the most famous spaces on Earth, the Hall of Mirrors. 357 mirrors lining an enormous gallery made entirely with French glass, using the very techniques Venice had tried to kill people to protect. It wasn't decoration, it was a message. Every foreign ambassador who walked through that hall was meant to understand one thing: Venice's monopoly was broken and France had won. So by this point, mirrors are officially a symbol of imperial power. But there's a much darker, much quieter story happening behind the scenes of every single one of these beautiful objects: mercury. For nearly 400 years, the standard way to silver a glass mirror involved bonding a sheet of tin foil to the glass using liquid mercury in a process called the tin amalgam method. Workers stood over open vats of mercury for hours a day, breathing in toxic vapor with essentially zero protection. Chronic mercury exposure causes tremors, memory loss, personality changes, and eventually death. Mirror makers in this era were, quite literally, poisoning themselves slowly to build the objects the aristocracy admired themselves in. There's a genuinely uncomfortable theory floating around that the phrase "mad as a hatter," which most people associate with the felt hat industry's mercury use, applied just as easily to mirror workers who suffered from strikingly similar symptoms for the exact same chemical reason. It wasn't until 1835 that a German chemist named Justus von Liebig developed a new process using silver nitrate instead of mercury to chemically deposit a thin, bright silver layer directly onto glass. It was cheaper, it was safer, and it could finally be done at industrial scale. This single breakthrough is basically the reason a mirror stopped being a symbol of royal power that people died making and became something an ordinary working-class family could actually hang in their hallway. Which brings us to something even weirder than the mercury: what people actually believed a mirror could do to you. Across an enormous number of cultures, completely independently of each other, the mirror was treated as something closer to a doorway than an object. In many European traditions, mirrors in a house were covered with cloth immediately after someone died, out of fear that the soul of the deceased, still lingering in the room, could become trapped inside the glass, or worse, that it could reach through and pull a living person's reflection in with it. Breaking a mirror bringing 7 years of bad luck actually has a fairly practical origin buried underneath the superstition. For most of history, mirrors were expensive enough that shattering one really could set a family back financially for years. The Romans are believed to have originated the 7-year specific number, tied to their own beliefs about life renewing itself in 7-year cycles. And this idea that a mirror could hold a piece of your soul wasn't just folk superstition for peasants. It shows up in serious art and literature for centuries, this anxiety that looking too long or too vainly at your own reflection was a kind of spiritual danger. Vanity, quite literally, was treated as a sin you could catch from your own reflection, which, if you think about certain corners of the internet in 2026, might be one of the least outdated superstitions on this entire list. Okay, so we've covered divination, empire, assassination, poison, and superstition. Here's where the story of the mirror does something genuinely beautiful. The exact same object that vain kings once killed over became the single most important tool in the history of human science. In 1668, Isaac Newton built the first practical reflecting telescope, using a curved mirror instead of a glass lens to gather and focus light. Mirrors don't bend different colors of light by different amounts the way lenses do, which means a mirror-based telescope produces a sharper, clearer image with far less distortion. Every major telescope built since, essentially without exception, uses this exact principle. Every image you have ever seen of a distant galaxy, from Hubble to the Very Large Array, was captured by starlight bouncing off a mirror before it ever reached a camera. And in 2021, humanity launched the most advanced telescope ever built, the James Webb Space Telescope, nearly 1 million miles from Earth. Its primary mirror is made of 18 hexagonal segments, coated in a microscopically thin layer of actual gold, because gold reflects infrared light more efficiently than almost anything else on the periodic table. The literal same physics that let a Bronze Age Egyptian check her makeup in a polished copper disc is the physics currently letting scientists photograph galaxies that formed within a few 100 million years of the beginning of the universe itself. Mirrors ended up everywhere else too. Surgeons use tiny mirrored instruments for minimally invasive procedures they couldn't perform any other way. Lasers, from barcode scanners to industrial cutting tools to your laser printer, only function because of precisely angled mirrors bouncing light exactly where it needs to go. Even the camera in your phone right now likely uses a small internal mirror or prism system to fold the light path and keep the lens thin enough to fit in your pocket. And on the darker end of that same technology, one-way mirrors, the same physics as your bathroom mirror with a thin enough reflective coating, turned this ancient object into a surveillance tool, watching people who have no idea they're being watched. From divination stone to imperial obsession to a chemical hazard that quietly poisoned its own craftsmen, to arguably the single most important instrument in modern astronomy. The mirror never really changed. It's still just doing the one thing it's always done, showing you something true, whether or not you actually wanted to see it. And that, weirdly, might be the most human story of all. If you like this one, we actually covered another everyday object with a shockingly violent hidden history, the real story of soap. And trust me, it gets dark. Go watch that one next.